Some of the highest levels of chemical contamination ever found in this country are being investigated at a site in Cheshire. BBC North West Tonight can reveal that the levels of toxic forever chemicals, which hardly degrade, were higher than scientists could measure. The testing of the land next to an old factory near Frodsham was done for a BBC podcast 2 years ago, and the local council has been investigating ever since, but it won't tell us what it's found, as Phil McCann reports.
5,000 people in its heyday made cables at the huge BICC factory in Helsby in Cheshire. They used what were thought of as wonder chemicals, polychlorinated biphenyls, PCBs.
Here in the laboratory, the curing effect of heat is shown.
Fire-resistant and insulating, but also highly toxic and in high doses linked to cancer. They began to be banned from the 1970s. Today, the factory's gone, but PCBs don't biodegrade, part of a group known as forever chemicals.
At that Helsby site, we found, I think, pretty much some of the highest PCB levels that have ever been found in UK soils before.
Dave Megson tested mud from land just next to the site 2 years ago for the BBC podcast Buried.
That site is leaking PCBs, and a lot of PCBs. And so we need to properly characterise the site by taking many more samples so we can get an accurate measure of where the PCBs have gone.
Paul, a campaigning vicar, helped with the testing from next to this drainage ditch, which feeds the Mersey estuary.
Oh, I think this is of national and potentially international significance.
BICC is now Balfour Beatty, and it's told the BBC it's commissioned independent sampling to determine the next steps. As a responsible contractor, it says, we take all environmental matters extremely seriously. The council says a substantial amount of work to investigate, assess and remediate the land has already been undertaken by the developers building houses here. Gwen used to work at BICC and now lives here.
No, it doesn't worry me per se, but I suppose if you're a family with young children, then it would worry you, wouldn't it?
Dr Megson's sample was taken from land next to the former factory, which is not due to be redeveloped. And the council has for the first time confirmed to the BBC that it's launched an official investigation to see if that land should be legally classed as contaminated, which could lead to a clean-up. But it's refusing to release a report put together after new sampling, saying it could prejudice the investigation. The council's also investigating whether the field behind these trees, an old landfill site nearby in Alvanley, should also be legally classed as contaminated land, meaning it would have to be cleaned up too. Paul has farmed the fields next door for decades.
You'd see barrels being tipped in and bulldozers going over the top of them. There was a lot of stuff coming here from factories at night.
There was a prosecution about this site decades ago because PCB pollution was flowing into a local brook, which ends up in the Mersey estuary. But there was no clean-up, and water is still flowing into the brook. It's hoped the council investigation might change things, but it's been ongoing for nearly 2 years.
I've tried to be positive with the council. I've done it the easy way, being polite, trying to talk to them. I've done it the hard way. I've run out of ideas, to be honest with you.
I think this investigation will give us some answers, but I think we need to scrutinise it and make sure that a proper job is done.
The council says it has to follow a legal process for the site, which it says is both methodical and thorough to ensure all relevant factors are identified, considered and addressed. Paul has waited decades for a clean-up. He's still waiting. Phil McCann, BBC North West Tonight, Cheshire.
Let's talk to Dr David Megson, who you saw in that report from Phil. He did the testing at the two sites. You're from Manchester Metropolitan University, and thank you, Dr Megson, for coming in. How dangerous are these PCBs for people who live there?
So the people who live there at the moment, the risk should be minimal. Whenever a housing development occurs, the developer needs to prove that that land is safe to protect future residents. So that pathway between the residents and the PCBs underneath the site should have been broken, so the risk should be minimal to anybody living there at the moment.
Phil talked about water running from a brook into the River Mersey. What about the wider area?
That, to me, is the issue, and the one that I think needs more investigation. The testing that we've done has shown that these landfill sites are leaking, and they're leaking quite a lot of PCBs. And so they can go out into the wider environment. And with climate change and weirder kind of climatic events, there's more of a risk of these landfill sites leaking more often and those toxic contents spilling out and polluting or repolluting areas.
And what's the danger there? I mean, what does that mean in human terms, I suppose?
Yeah, so we know a fair amount about PCBs. They're one of the most infamous chemicals, incredibly persistent, and they do have a wide range of toxic effects. They've been linked to cancer, neurological damage, kidney disease, reductions in fertility as well. So there's a real kind of concern from that human aspect and also to wildlife as well.
How difficult would it be to clean up that site now?
Challenging, I guess. Any of these investigations need a lot of money. You don't just want to charge in because you've spotted a hazard and spend millions cleaning up that site. We need to do the investigation first to see if it's warranted to spend that much money. Councils are so restricted on the amount of funding that they've got. They need to prioritise that in the right areas. And so that's why I think this investigation is so important. As you've seen the councillor mention, we need to make sure we get the science right. This is properly scrutinised. And if we do identify a risk, we make sure we get there and we fix it.
And we don't want to scaremonger, and you did start out by saying that the risk is very minimal to people. Are you aware in your work of, and again, don't name them, but other sites similar to this in other places in the northwest, which has such a rich industrial past?
Some in the northwest. There's PCB sites, especially kind of all over the country, Wales and the northwest of the UK, are particular hotspots for areas where this former industrial waste was buried. In North America as well, I've done a lot of litigation cases as well. And over there, it's so much more prevalent for communities that are concerned to get together, bring legal action, and that brings such a swifter, more detailed resolution because they're able to get more detailed information to see if these people are at risk, and that just doesn't happen in the UK.
But the risk is, as you said, minimal. That's the important thing to say.
For most people, we hope so. If that job's been done correctly, they should be OK.
Thank you for coming in. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Dr. David Megson there from Manchester Metropolitan University.